He briefly worked as the White House communications director for the Trump administration. He's now part of an effort to remove the president he once served. He's Anthony Scaramucci, joins us for a one-on-one from New York. Right now, Anthony, with 50 days to go, how would you rate the presidential race?
Well, obviously, the vice president is ahead. There's less undecided voters this time, Larry, than there was in 2016. But remember, I did work for the president, and so I know how capable he is. I think that it would be important for the vice president and the people that want to defeat President Trump to run through the tape here and play to the last seconds of the game. And so I don't think there could be any let up. Mr. Trump is a formidable guy.
How could anyone still be undecided?
That's a good question, but there's 50. My grandfather had a great expression about polling. There's 15 feet between you waiting and the polling booth. At least that's what it used to be in New York. And it's in those last 15 feet where some people make their decisions. And oftentimes they're workers or they're low information voters. They're not as focused on it as you and I are. And apparently, according to Rachel Bycoffer, who's a pretty talented pollster, there's still about 6.5% of the American electorate that's undecided about the election.
That's unbelievable. All right, Bob Woodward's new book revealing that Trump knew how serious COVID-19 was and didn't reveal it. What do you make of that?
Well, I have the book here on my desk. I finished reading that book last night. It's a pretty damning book. Obviously, the recordings of the president are hurtful as well. But I think, Bob's 77, 50 plus years as a investigative journalist. He finishes the book by basically saying a distillation of his interviews and his fact finding. The president is not fit. Donald Trump doesn't have the right personality for that office. And so I think that's something that I believe. It's something that Jim Mattis believes, General Kelly believes, Rex Tillerson believes. H.R. McMaster is coming out with a book next week. I'm sure we should try to get him on politicking. I mean, he's got a lot to say about this as well. You've got a circle of sycophants around the president now that will probably do and say whatever he wants. But if you just look at his decision making, and you look at the bellicosity of his rhetoric, and you look at the impetuosity of what he's doing, I think it's very, very dangerous. And I think that responsible people that have worked for him, it's Miles Taylor at the Department of Homeland Security, people like myself, are at least trying to offer a patriotic warning to our fellow citizens.
Well, I know him for 40 years. I still can't figure out, can you guess, why did he call Woodward? Why did he speak with Woodward more than a dozen times, knowing Woodward's past?
Well, I think it's the same way he would speak to Larry King. I mean, you had the highest rated show on CNN, I think, forever, frankly, and that attracts President Trump. He's somebody that's struck by stars. Bob Woodward is the investigative journalist of record, frankly, for 9 presidents. And what was fascinating about the book, if you read it, Larry, it wasn't Bob Woodward just initializing the calls. The president gave Bob Woodward his cell phone number, and he was also calling Bob Woodward late into the evening at his home to talk with him. So it was a total of 18 times, approximately 18 hours worth of interviews. It's literally like the president created his own October surprise on himself. And he had tapes, and the tapes happened to be of himself, and he turned them over to Bob Woodward. That's what it actually reads like, and that's what it looks like.
He also told Bob Woodward that he does not understand the anger and pain of Black Americans. He feels no responsibility for it, no association. Didn't that surprise you or not?
It did surprise me because he lived here in New York, like you lived in Brooklyn, and I lived out here on Long Island. And it just demonstrates a lack of empathy or a lack of feeling for other human beings. And, he does admit to Woodward, though, that he does believe that there is systemic racism. He's just a bit callous about the effects that it has on communities, what it has on families, police brutality, and prison sentences, frankly. I mean, listen, I mean, it's been a disaster in the last 6 months for a number of different reasons. But let's just talk candidly to viewers. The president has mishandled the pandemic. The president has lied about the science related to the pandemic. The president has politicized things like mask wearing, which we know if we followed those protocols that have been followed in Europe and Asia, we would have had less fatalities, less number of cases. Remember, we're tracking at about 600 cases per million, and in South Korea, they're tracking at about 20 cases per million. So this has been a unmitigated disaster for the president, and it's hobbled the economy. And so these are the reasons why I think he's going to lose. That proverbial question, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? Even those undecided voters, as they get 15 feet closer to that polling booth, they recognize that they're not better off. And I think we'll switch jockeys here like Americans have done over the last 100 years when we've gone into recessions like this.
Are you surprised that he reportedly at a military cemetery called the dead losers and suckers?
I am not surprised by that. And I have said that, I was on the campaign plane with the president, and I was telling him about my trip to Afghanistan and a trip that I took to Iraq for troop support mission purposes. And he looked incredulous to me. He was like, why would you do that? And he had that sort of philosophical opinion related to the troops. And so I think it's very telling. That General Kelly has not been asked to issue a statement. Moreover, when Jeff Mason, the White House correspondent, asked the president 2 weeks ago, well, why don't you have General Kelly issue a statement? He was with you the whole time. If what you're saying is not true, let's have General Kelly issue a statement. Of course, the president said no way to that because, the general would tell the truth, that what the president is reported to be saying is just the tip of the iceberg of what he's actually said. And so what he did was he went out and got 15 sycophants who weren't directly associated with the story to lie on his behalf. And so that's where we are right now. But he does feel that way about the troops. You can ask Michael Cohen. You can ask anybody close to him over the last 10 years about his feelings about people that serve in the military. You and I both know he's a transactionalist, and he doesn't see money associated with that type of service. And so that's one of the reasons why he's turned off by it.
Do you find him easy? He just lies easily?
All right, well, Larry, you know him a long period of time. He was lying on your show 20 years ago. He's said 22,000 lies. There was one moment, which I think I may have expressed to you, but it's worth repeating. We were preparing something for him. I was only in the White House 11 days. We were preparing something for him. We told him the number was 86%. He walked into the Rose Garden and said, well, 90% of the such and such. And then he came back in and we looked at him and like, well, why did you say 90%? It was 86%. He said, well, 90% sounded better. And so he's done that his whole life. There's a pathology to that. I think he laughs at the fact that he gets away with so much and he's able to double and triple down on his lies. Moreover, I think some of these sycophants in the news media, I know he laughs about them. I've seen him do that. He ridicules the people that are so in the tank for him, frankly. So, yes, you and I both know that he's a sociopathic liar, and it's been proven, just by documenting what he's saying on a daily basis.
You recently said that a vote for Joe Biden will save the Republican Party. How?
Well, I think that the party has been captured by the personality cult of Donald Trump, and a lot of these former Republicans have been morphed into Trumpists. And so if you really follow the principles, the longstanding principles of the party, dating back to Lincoln, passing through people like Eisenhower and Reagan, the president clearly is not a Republican by the brand of republicanism. And so we have a very big schism in the party right now. if the president is reelected, he's going to continue to narrow down the party. That party is a aging demographic. It's a group of people that are frankly buying catheters on Fox News commercial breaks. It's no offense to the age. I'm over 55 myself, but I do think that is not where we need to go as a Republican Party. We need to expand the tent. We need to include those people for sure, but we need to expand the tent of the Republican Party demographically across income stratas, and we need to have that party be looking more like the American people, a more colorful mosaic of American people. It can't be a party of aging white people, Larry.
Why did you join his administration?
Well, listen, I think that's one of my flaws. I joined the administration because I was a lifelong Republican. I had worked for Jeb Bush. I transitioned over to work for the Republican nominee, as I thought most people would be willing to do. You had a choice between Secretary Clinton and Donald Trump. I was a Republican, so I went to go work in his campaign. When he won, I was on his transition team. I was originally slated to be the OPL director, the Office of Public Liaison, but Steve Bannon and Reince Priebus blocked that job on me. I called President Trump and said, hey, those guys are bad guys. If you ever want to get rid of them and you need my help, just give me a call. I'll come down and I'll do it. And so he did. He called me in mid-July and told me that I was right about them. He asked me to come work for him. The communications director's job was open, and so he gave me that job. And that's my shortcoming, Larry. I have to own that. I allowed my pride and my ego to cause me to make an irrational judgment on the situation. And so what I tell younger people when I talk about that decision, if you put your pride and ego into your decision making, your emotions go up and your intelligence goes down, and you could put yourself in a spot that you shouldn't be in. And that was the case for me. But I think it's worth pointing out, though, that there's a silver lining to that story. I got fired by John Kelly 11 days after I started in the Trump administration. That probably went a long way to help me save my marriage. It probably went a long way to help me save my reputation and my career. And subsequently, I become very good friends with General Kelly. So there's a silver lining in all these things, but there were some misjudgments by me